Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to The Solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. We're here today to bring back our podcast that took a very long hiatus. That was not exactly planned, but we're glad you could join us. I'm Ronnie Katz. I'm the director of the New York City Prevention Resource Center.
And I'm Chevar Francis, Community Development Specialist, who's a part of the Prevention Resource Center. It's been a long time, Ronnie. It's been a
Oh my
while.
God. Shavar, we never planned to take this much of a break. You say you need a break in life, and boy, it hits you in the face.
Did we really take a break, though, Ronnie? Did we really take a break?
Well,
The
we
amount of work
haven't
that we
taken a
did?
break.
Okay.
Actually, the work of the Prevention Resource Center has gone on throughout the pandemic, throughout the quarantine, and it's gotten stronger and better. But for those who don't know, maybe we need to tell them a little bit about what we are and why we're here.
So, yes, we are the Prevention Resource Center. And if you guys haven't gotten a chance to listen to our first podcast, which is amazing, by the way,
Yes,
you might notice that we're actually down 2 members. Life happens and people move on. So, we wish the best for those. But what we do is we support 17 coalitions around the 5 boroughs. Well, is it 17 still, or is it more?
It's around 17.
About 17 coalitions around the 5 boroughs in drug prevention to support drug misuse among youth. And youth is 18 and under. What else do we do, Ronnie? Is that?
Well, we also train prevention professionals. We provide technical assistance and training to the coalitions, and we're one of 6 regional prevention resource centers in New York State. And that's our main objective, to help develop these community coalitions, because we know that when communities come together, changes happen. And also to provide them with what they need to help them grow, and to help the prevention professional world grow their skills and be a part of what's happening. So we like to see ourselves kind of as the voice of prevention.
So I guess we could talk about what we've been up to since our last podcast. Well, since the quarantine started. We've done a lot, we've done a lot. And I would mention that, I thought when this all started, things have been different. They have been different as far as like the coalitions and their meetings. And what I've noticed, and Rhonda, you could probably share or disagree or agree, during our coalition meetings, the attendance has gone up. We've had more participation.
Most definitely.
Not only participation in the actual meetings, there's actually more participation in the subcommittees, which is something I've been pushing for. Subcommittees, where are you? But they're there and they're happening, and this work is happening. People are so much involved and so vested in the work. We thought that this work couldn't get done under these conditions, when in fact this work needed to be done under these conditions.
I think the work is thriving. And before I forget, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that OASIS, which is the Office of Addiction Services and Supports, is who funds us. And without them, we couldn't be doing this work. So I just want to thank them for that. Chevar and I see each other on a daily basis, but we haven't actually been in each other's presence since March 13th.
Yes.
That was the last time. And today is June 17th. So it's been a while, but how was your day? How was your morning?
This morning, my day, I always look out, and you guys probably can see me if we do show the video. I always look towards the window, because that tells me how my day is or will be or should be. So the sun is out. So guess what? My day is good. My day is good, going good so far. I actually had one of many, many, many meetings this morning via Zoom. I had one early this morning with the group from one of our coalitions in the Bronx, FSBC for South Bronx, which was really, really good. It was cool. It was actually only 3 of us, but it was cool. So my morning was great. The sun is out. I'm going to share something personal. I've been doing some home improvement. So I'm painting one of the bedrooms.
Nice.
The color is called metal gray, or metal white or metal gray, I forget, but it's like a light gray. Really light gray. It's pretty cool. So, yeah, that's what I've been up to this past 2 days. Also, I've been asked to participate in a panel later tonight. So I have to write a speech. So this is
if
going
you need help, although I don't think you'll need help because you're passionate.
I'm very passionate. And this speech is pretty much about what's going on in society right now. And I was a part of a discussion, and they asked me to speak at this panel that's happening my mentor asked me to speak at a panel tonight. So
Nice. Well, before we get to some of those issues, I had an interesting morning.
let's do it.
Working from home definitely changes the trajectory of one's day, and things are not necessarily in the order we always do them. And I took my 2 dogs to the vet this morning for their annual checkup. And the way they're doing veterinary care today, in today's world, is they come out with a mask and gloves, and they take the dog from the car, and they bring the dog in, and they do everything and bring them back out, and then you speak to the vet over the phone. Well, I got out of the car with one of my dogs, Katie, and Lucy, my little sly one, decided to lock the door. And she hit her paw on the door lock, and with the car running, the air conditioner on, and here I am now standing in the parking lot of the vet's without a way to get into the car. So of course my heart started to race. I started to feel a little panicked. I had my mask and my gloves on because I think that's really important. And I couldn't get in the car. So I needed to get to my house, which was about 3-4 miles away, to pick up the key from my spouse because our other car is dead. Thankfully, a good Samaritan stepped up to the plate and said, "I'll drive to your house for you." This guy wouldn't take any money for it. He wouldn't do anything. All he wanted to do was help. And, I need those little things on a daily basis to remind me that there's more good people out there than people who would prefer for us, to fail and to create damage for us. So it's a good reminder. There's people out there. When we put out the energy, it comes back to us.
Good question. It said the other dog was locked inside with the AC. Was it hot outside? Were you guys sweating outside with the veterinarian?
I
the
was
AC was
dripping with sweat, absolutely dripping. With the anxiety too. It's like, and I'm looking at her, and I'm trying to get her to come over and maybe get her to step on the window to release
Right.
it. And she's looking at me like, what? What? She's calm, she's collected. And here I am outside dripping with sweat. But all's well that ends well. And thankfully, I'm here now, and we're getting to talk to everybody about all the great work that we're doing. Oh, and we have a special guest later. I'm really excited.
Me too. Hopefully, when this person comes on, you guys will hear her. It's going to be fun.
We're not going to tell you who she is till she gets here, but she's one of the main forces in prevention and in recovery in New York City. And she's really somebody who's been a pioneer, and we're going to talk with her later. So we'll tell you a little bit about it when she gets here. But let's talk a little more about what we've been doing. So we've been seeing a lot of meetings. Our coalitions are meeting on a regular basis now. We're getting to go to all the meetings. What are some of the highlights for you, Chevar, that you've been seeing through all this?
The highlights, I mentioned earlier, subcommittees and seeing the investment from members and participants, and giving up their time, whether it's during the workday or evening time, to participate in these subcommittees, especially subcommittees around outreach, reaching out to different, whether it's CBOs or businesses, to see how they can connect with them. In addition to that, like the social media presence. This is something a lot of us frowned away from because it's the fear of. Because not everyone uses social media. There's levels of social media. You have an age group for Facebook. We have an age group for Twitter. We have an age group for Instagram. We have an age group for TikTok. And I'm not sure where I fall in any of those age groups because, I don't really use TikTok, but that's a whole other story. I'm not into dancing and stuff. But yeah, I think one of the coolest things is seeing our coalitions, engage and being more open to creating TikTok videos, to creating social media posts, to tweeting, to creating hashtags. Hashtag Zoom in on prevention, by the way. Hashtag NYC Pop, hashtag New York City, NYC PRC Solution. Just wanted to throw that out. Make sure you guys check for those hashtags. But the subcommittees, I think, are one of the coolest things because if you can't make the general meeting, your impact in the subcommittee is there. You get to vote on a design of a logo. You get to vote on a new initiative. You get to make change. You can vote on what policies that the larger group have come up with, or if not, you at the small group you can come up with a policy that can be engaged with the larger group. So the subcommittees for me I see a lot of the action because I was caught at one point during this PRC work, Mr. Next Steps. And I always talk about what happens in between meeting 1 and meeting 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've always talked about that. And I think this is because of this pandemic, we've been allowed to participate in those next steps, engage in those next steps, having those next steps be more meaningful, and having the meetings are actually being full of information from within the month. Ronnie?
Well, no, just I'm thinking about what you're saying, and it's just like it just magnifies how important it is to continue this work under different circumstances. You know, we're as good as we can adapt. If we can adapt to anything, we can keep our work going. And it's been such a rewarding thing because we are seeing a lot more people drinking. Alcohol use has skyrocketed because people can get alcohol pretty easily, and they're sitting in front of their computers and they're having happy hours and they're having all kinds of parties, and you know, young people included, young adults as well. And that's something we want to talk about with our guests a little bit later. But you know, the potential for so many of the behaviors that lead to substance misuse disorder are, or substance use disorder, as the technical term is, they're present right now. And there's so much isolation, and there's a lot of depression, and there's so many things. I mean, with everything going on, first we start with the whole isolation from the pandemic, then the social unrest, which on some levels is just exhilarating, but on other levels is so upsetting and depressing and aggravating. And, you know, it runs the gamut of emotions. And this work is so important during this because there's so much trauma around what's going on in our world today. And people have dealt with this trauma for years, and we've got to keep this work going, and we have to address it on new levels. And much of it has been virtual. So it's been really exciting. And one of the things that's come out of this, that's, I think, my favorite thing to come out of this all is something called NYC Pop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, if you're wondering what that is, no, it's not a new beverage.
It sounds delicious, by the way.
It does. It is delicious. It's, you know, New York City Partners of Prevention. I've had a month ago, maybe a month, 6 weeks at tops.
Mm-hmm.
We got together with 2 coalitions in the Bronx, and they were talking about doing some COVID-19, there it is, NYC Pop, prevention posts on social media, and how could they coordinate the efforts. And it hit us, why not do this citywide? We could have all of the coalitions working together. And what came out of it was a super coalition. We've got about 15 coalitions working together. We meet every week. We meet in subcommittees. We have a logo now. And every Thursday, we do a prevention post. And starting 2 weeks ago, every Friday, or every other Friday, depending upon when it's ready, will be a social justice post. So we've realized the powers and numbers, and this is the whole city coming together in this effort. So we're so excited about this. I just have to throw that out there.
I mean, sharing as far as the post, the Friday post every other week, or targeted post, social justice post. For me, that means a lot, you know. And I know we talk about prevention and how do you define prevention? What does prevention look like? And allyship is a form of prevention, you know, in different forms, you know. And like you mentioned, like, you know, this unrest we're going to, you know, people are depressed and possibly of using more. You know, if there's an ally out there for you, whether you're a person of color, a Black person, a trans person, a person of a certain religious sect, like, you have someone out there speaking for you and sharing that information. I think I believe having that information, because initially it was brought to my attention. I got a text from one of our coalition CPCs, Nishanti. She had texted me on I think it was a Thursday or Wednesday. I forget what night. She texted me. He's like, Chevar, like, I'm like, what's up? It's like, is it okay if I bring up something about social justice and Black Lives Matter? I was like, yeah. Like, you know, you don't have to ask. And, you know, we were going back and forth and we were having this conversation. And she was like, I can't say that I'm an ally and not support and push this initiative through NYC Pop. If we're talking about supporting everyone, you know, and that meant a lot to me, you know, and I express that to her. Every time I speak to her, I say thank you. And she tells me to stop saying thank you. But it meant a lot, you know, and I think, you know, we're going to celebrate Juneteenth upcoming, and also celebrate or show support of Black trans. And I think this is a step in the right direction to show support and to talk about prevention in different forms.
Exactly. And it's all related. That's something that we have to keep in mind, that so much of this comes from the trauma that's created through all of these events. And people will turn to substances and other behaviors that are that are really detrimental to their health. This is a public health emergency, and we need to treat it as such. Just you mentioned Black trans women, and one of the things that we're going to post about is the deaths of Black trans women in this country. They've skyrocketed. We've had so many in 2020, 2019. We've just seen the deaths. I'm trying to look it up to see how many women have been killed. It's out of control. So we want to bring attention to that in some of our posts. The number, according to what I'm looking at today, is 26.
Wow. 26 reported.
In 2019, the number was 26. The majority of whom were Black trans women.
Wow.
So they're talking about 26 transgender murders. I don't want to give the wrong statistics, but
right.
I also don't want to stand here looking up stuff while we're talking to everybody. But just look it up. It's alarming, and we want to be able to bring some recognition to that, so that we can do something to help our society heal, so we can help to prevent some of these behaviors, because they're killing people, and it drives people to drink, it drives people to drug, it drives people to do things that are detrimental themselves. We need to come together to heal together.
As far as our posts, I do want to mention, because you mentioned something earlier about how there's an uptick, an extreme uptick in alcohol use and drug use. And I know our very first post as New York City Pop, or NYC Pop rather, we posted a "Did you know?" and it said since March 21st, so this is like a week or two into this, alcohol beverages increased by 55%. That was only a few weeks in.
Right.
Like, I can only imagine what it is now. I can only imagine what it is now, and it kind of, struck me as odd, or not odd, but like, wow. I remember watching the news when we were first told that we were in quarantine or lockdown, and they talked about essential workers, and they mentioned that, liquor stores were essential to society. And I was like, okay. I fully didn't understand why, but, everyone has their own ways of dealing with things. But watching the news, they talked about how restaurants can stay open, and a woman was on the news, and she jokingly said, and this is to buy alcohol, to buy wine or whatever. She says, "Oh, I'm going to buy a cookie just so I can get my alcohol." I'm like, wow. Like, you said it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to buy, I don't know how much the cookie costs. It could have cost $3, it could have cost $20. But the fact that, or 50 cents, you bought a cookie just so you can, leapfrog over whatever stipulations it is to buy alcohol. And we were doing research and finding out that, you can order your alcohol online, but who's checking your ID when it's delivered, or who's checking your ID when you're picking it up from the restaurant? And that's scary. And it's like, and even when you go online to some of these restaurants, they have a number of how many you can order, opposed to you can order only one. So it's like, how many, can I order 3, 4, 5? I hope not. No, but that for me is pretty scary.
I find it scary too, and people know how to get around that too. I mean, if you're somebody who intends to drink that day and you want a decent enough amount, you can do multiple orders. You can get friends to order. I've been in recovery for a long time. I'm in long-term recovery, and I knew during the years where I wanted to get my drugs and my alcohol, I was very, very inventive. We're very inventive people. We find ways. So there's just so much potential for people getting themselves in over their heads through all of this. And one of the things we've noticed is that there have been ads all over, and we're not trying to pick on Applebee's, but Applebee's happens to be what we've noticed in different boroughs. And Chevar was walking around his neighborhood and noticed the signs in Applebee's in the window that were just like trying to get everybody in for alcohol to go. And they make them so appealing to young people, to everybody. So we set out to go on a little project, and we've started to ask people to send us pictures of the local Applebee's and other venues that are selling alcohol to go. And we've only seen 2 neighborhoods so far, but we're starting to see a difference in the demographic. In Staten Island, it was 1 window as compared to like every window in Spanish Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
However, one of the windows showed a whole bunch of pictures of drinks of different colors that look like fruit punch. Who's that appealing to?
It was
Think
like, it looked like
about it.
ice to me or Kool-Aid or something with different.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's pretty. It's like if I'm a child and I see a green drink in the window next to an orange drink and a red drink and a blue drink, hey mom, dad, I want one of those.
Yeah.
That right there is appealing. Like when I took the picture of my neighborhood, well, this is the context. Those images were from Staten Island, but my neighborhood, it was plastered. I'm walking past Applebee's near the Costco's, and I happened to look up, and I'm like, 1 window, 2 windows, 3 windows. Like, this can't be true. And there's like one of those I'm greeted by one of those A-shaped advertisement. This is drinks to go. I'm like, okay, I get the picture. You want us to buy alcohol, but what about the food? Like, shouldn't it say food to go? Shouldn't food be plastered everywhere to go? And again, like Ronnie said, this isn't an attack on Applebee's because they aren't the only ones. There's
Oh,
other
it's happening
restaurants.
all over. Well, like you said, online sales of alcohol are up over 50%. Yeah, and I'm hearing about people having happy hours. Look, I did that during my using days, during my active days. Years ago, I would sit in front of my computer in a chat room, and I'd have a party with people. Today, you can see their faces. You can hang out and really, do it like you're in person. So the potential is there. That's why we need to be able to provide positive activities for people and positive coping mechanisms, and just we need to be inventive. Nothing changes. You see that in back of me. Nothing changes if we change nothing, and that goes for everything going on today.
Absolutely.
Band-aid approaches are not going to work. We've got to be aggressive in our approaches if we want to see stuff change. It's a big job.
I do want to talk about our other campaign, which is the It's a Good Time Too, which I think is really great because some of it talks about, will give you alternatives to using, or, get, a good time to meditate, a good time to be mindful of the things you say to people, a good time to reach out to a friend. So those are really cool. I think, when that idea came up, I forget who said we should do It's a Good Time To campaign. I'm like, yeah.
I actually remember.
Yeah. It was cool.
One of our friends from public health just used the term, well, it's a good time too. And we all stopped and said, wait a minute, that's a campaign. And that's where it came out of. But there's so many things that say it's a good time too.
It's a great way, especially for those of us who are still quarantined, who are still home, or for those of us who have lost their jobs or furloughed. Like, let's think about how else can we support each other? How else can we prevent certain things from happening, especially drug use or alcohol use? Again, live your life, but let's be mindful of how we live our lives. It's a good time to do some art. I'm actually painting now. I'm gonna do a painting this weekend. I found my painting supplies. I'm super excited. Like, I know painting relaxes me. It makes me calm. Actually drawing in general, doing any type of art calms me down. And the world literally slows down when I do art. Literally.
I love that.
Like, literally. I can sit there and draw, and 2 hours have gone by, and I have not moved, eaten, used the bathroom, or anything, and didn't realize that 2 hours have gone by.
It's amazing when you get immersed in something that feeds your soul. I'm like that with the guitar. I pull out my guitar and I'm not playing it enough. I'm hoping on some of our future podcasts to pull out my guitar and just play a song or just play some background music. So I'm saying it out loud so that I know I'm doing it. One of the things for me that has been really positive, like I said, I'm in long-term recovery, and it's been a while since I've been doing regular meeting attendance. And because of the virtual meetings, I've started going to meetings on a regular basis again. And it's been the thing I needed. It really helps, it helps fill that gap in my life. that I've been feeling for a long time. You know, you don't realize you're missing something till you've been away from it and you go back to it. The recovery community has really embraced this in a positive way. And actually, our special guest later is going to be able to talk a little bit about that, because she's involved in those recovery services. But those online meetings, if you're somebody in recovery or you want to get into recovery, now is the time. There's meetings round the clock, all over the country, all over the world, and it's great. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to. You don't have to share, but it's such a great support. And it's not just for recovery, it's for a lot of different reasons. I know a lot of our coalitions are doing stuff online, a lot of virtual meetings. The situation we're in is not ideal, but there are some wonderful nuggets in there. And I think it's important for each of us to look and say, what can I do to enrich my life? How can I make it better? How can I not feel so isolated? So I know for me,
Absolutely.
that's been a saving grace.
I think we should not rephrase that. I know what you're saying. I believe what you're saying. It means a lot, having support, being at home. But some of us are at home alone. Being able to turn on Zoom, because I know at one point it was like, I need to touch or see someone, which we still do, but having this virtual time, it's no longer virtual to me. It's now, it's my social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way that, as I use Zoom now, I had the basic version and I ended up getting the paid version because when this first happened, I wasn't able to see a lot of my family members. And I was like, oh, let's do a Zoom call. We were on Zoom and it became a weekly thing where I was like, no, I might as well just pay for it and just have this Zoom reunion with my family who lives in different parts of the country. And one of the coolest things that have come out of it, my mom is like this extraordinary chef. She does a cooking demonstration every Saturday.
Nice.
And my cousins, they sit down, you can see them on Zoom taking notes or cooking simultaneously as she has. It's like, oh my God, mine doesn't look like yours. My mother's so sweet. It's okay. It's supposed to look however you think it's supposed to look. And they're like, no, I wanted to look at yours. Like, no, it's okay. Yours look perfectly fine. You did exactly what you're supposed to. So it's one of the coolest things, to have that interaction, to have that support. And one of my cousins said via Zoom, one of the Zooms that he joined later than everyone else. He said most of his life he felt alone. Like he didn't have this interaction with us, And I was sad. I was like, dude, no one should feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, trust me, you're gonna get a text from me either every day or every other day or a phone call because you shouldn't feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
We're family. And we host this Saturday event because we don't want anyone to feel alone. If you can't make this Saturday, I'm gonna text you to say what's up. I'm gonna call you to say what's up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reach out to you on Instagram. I'm gonna not only go on Facebook, but if I do go on Facebook, I'll reach out to you on Facebook just to let you know that I'm still here. So a lot of my cousins have been reaching out to me saying thank you, like I love you, and all these things. Because we're doing this. And this upcoming Saturday, I said I'm painting. One of my younger cousins, I didn't know she was she's a musician. She sings, what have you, and she raps, what have you. Pretty good voice, pretty good singing voice. But I didn't know that she paints and draws also. So she's actually going to lead. So my mom's going to take a break this weekend and not cook. So my younger cousin, she's going to lead a painting exercise with the entire family via Zoom.
It's amazing how creative people can be.
So we're doing that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're talking about being alone, so I think I'd like to share some numbers with people.
Go for it.
I mean, if you're watching this or listening to this, and you're thinking, I wish I could, connect with people, or you're feeling hopeless, I want to give you some numbers here in New York City. 24/7 a line called the Hope Line, HOPELINE line. You can call 877-8-HOPE-NY. So it's 877-8-HOPENY, or you can text 467-369. That's through the Office of Addiction Services and Supports. Nobody has to be alone. You really don't. One thing I want to ask you about too, we talk about this ad nauseum, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Let's do it.
Masks, gloves. Do we need to be doing this still? I mean, we're watching the city opening up. What's your feelings on wearing masks and gloves?
My feelings is you should be wearing the mask and gloves. I don't have any other. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. But I'm a human being who wants to remain safe and wants to wants to keep the people around me safe. Because I can be asymptomatic and not know it, and then give it to someone else. Like for me, and I'm going to be very honest. If someone's offended, I apologize. Sometimes when I see these things, I think it's selfish because, well, I'm not sick, so what? But then what do you know about the person next to you? Like if you have an elderly person that you're at home, you might come across a friend who is asymptomatic or who has corona and doesn't tell you, and then you take it home to your family, and now you're wondering where did I get this from? I hated seeing videos or posts where people say corona isn't real, and then 3 weeks later, oh my God, corona is real. I'm sick.
Yeah,
it should always be real. Because you aren't sick, that doesn't mean it's not real. People have cancer, right? Is it real?
exactly. And I think in New York, so many of us have been affected by it. You have personally, I have personally, lost people, and I think it's one of my things that makes me crazy that people are not believing it. I'm definitely in one of those high risk age groups. I'm in my late 60s. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I'm definitely, in a high risk group, and I'm married to somebody with an immune disorder. I don't want to bring that home. I have not been in a store since mid-March. And when I do go into something, which I think I may venture out finally this week during senior hours, there I said it, I'm going to wear my mask and gloves. So I agree. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for somebody else. And just, I know in Missouri, I think it was, I never get the state right, or Minnesota, there were two hairdressers who wound up testing positive, but they wore masks as a prevention, tactic prior to not even knowing they were positive. They met with, I think, 146 clients. Not one of them got the virus. So masks do work. So that's my little PSA right there. Just how to plug that one. I think it's important to mention this stuff because prevention goes across a lot of things. Prevention is about a mindset. And it isn't just about little strategies that we utilize. It's about thinking in terms of people as a whole and wanting to have a better society. It's a holistic type of initiative. It doesn't just involve drugs and alcohol. So I just had to put that out there because if somebody's on the fence about this, maybe just hearing from us will convince them a little bit.
No, please, man. And again, if I offend anyone who has cancer, that was not my intention. I just want, I just use it as a point. It's real. The coronavirus, COVID-19, wherever you want to call it, it's real. It's something that affected some of us, not all of us. And if you do know someone close to you who passed away, how do you deal with it? How do you cope? And I'm big on supporting people. And like I said, I don't know if I've come across someone going to Costco, and I do my best to stay in the house. I don't go outside. Only to go get what I need to eat, and then I stay in the house.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere. I don't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do I miss being outside? Yes, I do. I actually went outside the other day and I jumped on the MTA and I was terrified. I jumped on the train, the subway. I was terrified.
Understandable.
Terrified. I said it like 6 times. And I'll say it again. Going down into the train station, I went down there and I remember watching the news and the governor saying that they're giving out free masks and free hand sanitizer. I do wear a mask already anyway, and I have my own. But I noticed that they had hand sanitizer, so I asked the token clerk for one, and I took it. And if you go on the subway, which I think is pretty cool, they have signage on the floor that tells you where you should stand, 6 feet apart. Right, you should stand here. And I remember when I got on the train, I've noticed the only people who were sitting next to each other or in proximity to each other were, I guess, friends and family. So if your family members, obviously you're going to sit next to them because you're trusting that they don't have, because that's your child or your partner, what have you. So, when people who did get on the train, they would look around for space, and they would go to that space to social distance. So I appreciate that a lot. But when I came home, I took the bus back. Did not take the train. And I take the train, people laugh at me and they say, why do you take the bus over the train? And I say, because for me, it's safety reasons. I can get off of the bus whenever I want to. The train, if the train gets stuck, I'm stuck on the bus. Oh, someone's coming in. Let me finish up this thought.
The special guest is here, but go ahead. Finish your thought.
The bus, if I feel uncomfortable or unsafe, I can easily ring the bell and text the bus driver to stop, and I can get off and walk the rest of the way. You know, so that's why I prefer to take the bus over the train, especially in this time.
Good morning, Felecia.
We have a guest. We have a guest.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. Our first guest. We're so excited. Thank you so much.
Guys. Thank you.
Well, we have our special guest today, and this is Felecia Pullen. And I told you I wasn't going to say who it was till she got here. I described you earlier as a pioneer in substance misuse prevention and recovery. And we're so glad you could be here with us. You know, we've been talking about things that are just going on around us and how prevention and recovery supports are so vital right now.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for doing this.
Oh, it's important that we all provide the support we need for each other and just keep people informed. So maybe you could, tell our audience a little bit about what you do. I just want to say that I've known Felecia since 2014. First time we met was above a deli in the Flatiron district where my office used to be. And she had some incredible ideas. And I feel really honored to have been a part of those ideas since inception. But I'm not going to say anymore. I'm going to let you talk about it. Why don't you tell them all about you?
And it was since inception, Ronnie, and thank you for taking the journey with me. It has definitely been a ride for us. I think when you and I first met, we were hashing out what Safe in Harlem should look like when we got funded. And I'll say when we got funded because we did eventually get funded. And it was amazing having those meetings with you and Asari, who was a part of the Children's Aid family, and Aviva Grasso from New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and our friends at Harlem Hospital and the Manhattan DA's office and NYPD. And so, we journeyed together and founded Safe in Harlem, which is a team-led coalition all about substance misuse prevention.
Well,
can you share with us?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you share with us what the acronym for SAFE is in Safe in Harlem? Because everyone doesn't know. I was supposed to wear my Safe in Harlem shirt. I was like, oh my God, where's my shirt? Where's my shirt? I rock the shirt, man. I rock the shirt.
Well, I appreciate you rocking the shirt you're repping for us, Chevar. And so, this is an inside joke because I am the acronym queen. And so SAFE stands for substance abuse free environments. And then of course, in the town, in the village where I was born and raised, Harlem, New York.
Yeah.
I'm Harlem till I live and Harlem till I die, Harlem till I survive. So I just wanted to say that I love Harlem.
I love me some Harlem.
Enough about us. Enough about us.
You didn't just stop there, though, with the coalition. I mean, I remember those early years going to the meetings at the hospital and just, seeing so many local stakeholders showing up. But then you took it to the next level. And, I mean, you've become the grant writer extraordinaire.
Well, the good news is I don't think that I ever do this alone. I had a mentor when I wrote the grant for Safe in Harlem. And so I'm going to give a shout out to Angelo Ortiz, who was, he was definitely a guiding force, and he helped us get to where we are. And you're right, we didn't stop there. We then wrote a grant to the state of New York. And with that grant, we were funded to open a recovery community and outreach center. Where else but in the village of Harlem, We're at 289 St. Nicholas Avenue between 124 and 125, which are my old stomping grounds. And so before I came into recovery, I hung out on these streets exactly right next door to our office used to be Nikki's, and Nikki's is now Checkers. And then a few blocks from where we are used to be Perks. And so, you know, I spent a lot of time not knowing that our offices and where we do holistic recovery support would be located, you know, not more than 10 years later.
Yeah, it's a dream come true. It's such an incredible center.
It's a dream come true. And I have to thank my journey for that, right? I have to thank my own journey in active addiction for leading me to where I am today. Without that journey, I would not have the same level of understanding about the disease, about treatment. I was mentioning the other day that I was very fortunate because I had strong insurance, if you will, that allowed me to go away to rehab. And while I was there, I experienced acupuncture and I experienced the power of yoga, sweat lodges, and meditation. And they definitely helped to center me emotionally when I was in a period of my life where, you know, I didn't know what I was going to be like without the drugs and without the alcohol. And so once I understood the power of those holistic approaches, I knew that that was something that we wanted to implement when we opened the center. It was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible place. And I remember that first tour before anything was even in the building. And now it's an amazing place. So
It is amazing.
And could you tell people the address again? You said it earlier, but just again so that they know where it is.
Absolutely. We are at 289 St. Nicholas Avenue in the lower level between 124th and 125th Streets. You know, I think that the true power of where we are is rooted in the love that is filtered throughout. When you walk in the door, you're greeted by Harriet, who is such an amazing woman. You just feel like you're enveloped in love and a hug. And that
shout out to Harriet.
Shout out to Harriet. You know, we often hear when our members come through the door, it feels good to be home. And that was the intent when we came together in the center, was just to make people feel like they were coming home to a space filled with love.
Yeah, you know, it's somebody in long-term recovery also. When I first got into recovery, we didn't have those kind of centers. And, you know, we were a community that met in church basements and got hidden away. But now to be part of a community, you know, I helped start the first recovery center in Portland, Maine. And
you were a trailblazer, Ronnie.
Well, you know, we kept trying and trying and trying until the states finally said, we'll fund you. And now, I mean, we see them all over the place, and we finally have become mainstream. We've been entered into the community at large, but doing it our own way. And it's so important when you get into recovery to feel like you belong somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, you lead me to really give a shout out to Oasis. Oasis is the Office of Addiction Services and Supports. And they believed in the vision for Harlem, for this, you know, the pillars, which is what we are called. They believed in the vision that I wrote out on paper. And because they believed in that vision, that gave us the muscle to really get this up and off the ground. But it is really the community partners, like the Prevention Resource Center, like NYPD, Harlem Hospital, Hunter College, Columbia University, Fordham University, Catholic Charities, the parents, the kids that really help us do what we do. And so I'm grateful that we took the SAMHSA model. And when we created the partnerships for the Holistic Center, we used the SAMHSA model and understood that we couldn't do this on our own. And we needed, you know, our community stakeholders. The Manhattan Borough President walks with us from door to door to disseminate information, which is like just mind-blowing. The commitment that we've gotten from Gail Brewer, from de Blasio, from Cuomo, from Brian Benjamin, from Inez Dickens. And so we're just really fortunate that this community believed in the vision and the mission, and they were willing to put their boots to the ground.
Yeah, what a great story. I mean, just so inspiring. Well, now during this whole quarantine with the pandemic, I mean, I know one of the things that's been hard for people is that recovery supports have, you know, gone virtual, and it's hard dealing without those hugs and the personal interactions. But how have you kept that? Like, what have you been doing during the pandemic?
So first thing I'm going to say is hashtag I'm a hugger. So it has been.
I know.
I need a hug. I need a hug. When
I've hugged you. I know.
I need a hug. Okay. When I see you, I need a hug. Okay, please.
Hashtag I'm a hugger. And it has been extremely difficult. And because I'm a hugger, I understand how difficult it is for some of our members as well. And we've really tried as best we can to help with some of that isolation. And so every day at noon, we have a Zoom, and it is just our members coming together to talk about their day, their feelings, their emotions, their relationships. So it's just kind of an open chat. We also have a meditation that happens on Wednesdays at 5 and Thursdays at noon. We have 2 yoga classes, Wednesday and Saturday. And so that is all virtual, but it is difficult for many to make connections, as we're doing right now on your podcast, virtually. We are now starting phase 1 of reopening. So for those like me that need to see some faces, we are starting our phases of reopening now.
So glad to hear that, and I'm sure a lot of your members are as well. Because we were talking earlier just how we're, you know, seeing so much more, and as far as like alcohol sales and people self-isolating and just all the trauma around, you know, the pandemic and around all of the injustice and the killings that are not new, but just you know, really come to the forefront, and just a long-term trauma that people have been dealing with, and how it pushes them towards addiction. I mean, it's a path that people often take. You know, so we were just noticing. I mean, have you made any observations as far as seeing more relapses or people more in need of your services?
So we haven't seen it personally, but because we are networked with the outpatient centers, with the treatment centers, with other recovery centers throughout the state, we are hearing a lot about it. And some of our community partners are also, and I don't want us to lose sight of the increase of domestic violence that is being perpetrated and endured by many as well. And so we definitely see negative impacts other than those that are very obvious as a result of COVID and the isolation. You know, we knew that this community was particularly hard hit. We knew that the Grant houses, which is right around the corner from our office, had some of the highest rates of COVID-related deaths, actually the highest rate of COVID-related deaths of all NYCHA developments in all 5 boroughs. And so we are trying to account for that as best we can, one, as we begin our reopening, but also as we do some of our community outreach as well.
Cool. Yeah, it's a difficult time. We're you know, you mentioned domestic violence. I was, you know, reading that calls to, you know, to try and prevent, what is it called here in this state? I don't even know. I've been in so many states, but calls about abuse with children have really decreased because all the mandated reporters are not with the kids.
Wow.
So they've seen a reduction of about 50%, which is scary.
Reduction in calls.
In calls, yeah. Which tells me a lot. That scares me. because
Yes.
there's not mandated reporters to call them in.
Yes.
So that's just an issue I
That's
just feel like people need to be aware of.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
And I think that, to that point, Ronnie, we really have to consider, what does our community look like? And so in absence of the mandated reporters keeping an eye on our babies, how can we as neighbors keep an eye on our babies? How do we really form a safety net in the community where we're not relying on mandated reporters, but as a neighbor, I can have some resources and the bravery, if you will, to say something if I'm seeing something. And I think that that's something that has definitely changed in terms of a culture in our community.
Yeah, really great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Can I say something really quickly? I've been quiet.
Well, I could tell you were going to. I saw your mouth
No,
start.
and I'm like, no, do your thing. And I appreciate this. I want to say this about these two amazing young women who are on this podcast. I always say this about Ronnie, and Ronnie laughs or she blushes when she turns beet red. She's a rock star, because like I walk in
Absolutely.
and it's
It's
like
my pale skin that you can see it. Come on.
and it's like, Ronnie? And like, yeah, I know Ronnie. And it's like they have all these stories about Ronnie and how great Ronnie is. And as far as Felecia, like you're like a minister. You're like this preacher. Like when you speak, like you guys have to see her speak. Is it so like it's so moving? I remember it was I even saw a video of you or somewhere, and especially also at CACA. I came back to Ronnie. I said, Ronnie, did you ever hear her speak? Like what in the?
Ronnie said, yeah, all too often.
No, not enough.
I say all that to say that, I'm not talking and it's cool and I usually talk a lot, but I want everyone to know that you have two amazing young women speaking.
Well, maybe my spirit is
and sharing knowledge, and it's great because I'm in awe sitting here. I love hearing people talk. I love people who have passion about what they know and who can speak and share the knowledge. So I'm listening, just like everyone else who's going to be listening to this. You guys better listen, take notes, go to the pillars,
And they can visit us online.
Oh yes, Zoom.
Yes, and we also have some amazing classes that are archived on our website. And so you can take yoga with Alana if you go onto our website. And so that leads me to say that our website address is www.pillars, PILLARS, like Nancy, Y like yarn, C like Charlie.org. That's pillarsnyc.org. And if you just want to meditate or do a yoga class or a cooking class, Chevar, I don't know if you know this, but we have a gentleman that has some real hardcore fitness classes on our website. And so check him out and see if you can keep up with them.
Trust me, I will. So yes, also keep in mind when you guys sign up, they do send out a newsletter and it has all this information in the newsletter, which I think is pretty cool. And to see how much Pillars have to offer now virtually, even before virtually, but having it virtually, I thought was pretty cool. Like I've been meaning to, I apologize. I've been meaning to come to some of the yoga and fitness classes, but like most of us, we're like extremely busy with work. One of these meetings, I'm like, I'm not going to join the Zoom meeting and just do some yoga.
Whenever you're ready, we're here for you.
Don't tell Ronnie I said that.
Whenever you're ready, I'm here for you.
I may be joining their noon meeting. What are you talking about? Hey, that's part of our work. To be, part of the culture around us. I think that's an important part of what we do. If we don't connect, we're not doing what we need to do to work in prevention. It's all about the connection.
Self-care, right? To your point, Ronnie, the self-care as, essential workers and first responders and those of us that work in human resource, administrations and that deliver critical care services, it is so important for us to remember that we too need self-care. And I think that all too often we forget about that as we're filling up other people's cups. Ours become very low as well. And so we too have to take time out to replenish.
I'm so glad you said that. It's so important. And I know a lot of people who watch our podcast are in the prevention field and related fields. And, you know, I think that's something that we need to drive home again. You know, I always say to my team, your job's important, but when you walk out the door, that's where your life really begins.
Mm-hmm.
You may love your job, but you can always get another job. You can't get another personal life. So
Mm-hmm.
we got to take care of those we love, and that includes ourselves.
Absolutely.
I'm so
But
glad you said
I'll
that.
tell you, on the other side of that sword, like, this is my life.
I get
You
that.
know, you know, I'm ashamed to say I rarely disconnect from it. Even when I'm driving to work, I look at the construction going on in Harlem, and it breaks my heart. I know that for many, it's an opportunity to live in a really cool neighborhood, but what I see is an increase of unaffordable housing.
Absolutely.
And it makes me angry. I often walk in the community, and I see the disparities, not only the health disparities, but the inequities of opportunity and the disparities of wealth. And it makes me angry. I remember being in Harlem in the 60s. Ooh, did I just tell my age?
No, you didn't say that. I heard. I'm gonna bleep that out.
and the 70s and the 80s, when, you know, other members of the community, you know, that are here now did not want to be here. And we had generations that stuck and stayed, and they continue to make this community just this, you know, what some people may not understand as a thriving community. We knew that it was, because it was filled with love, although it didn't have all of the high rises and glass windows and buildings. And so, you know, I see the change, and it is not something that I can easily embrace emotionally.
No, I mean, I'm a Harlem resident, and I totally understand what you're saying. You know, I'm being priced out of my own neighborhood,
Oh,
the place that I lived in. You know, my grandmother owns a brownstone, and there's someone on her, knocking her door every other day, asking her to sell it, which we're going to just keep it in the family, opposed to selling it for some price for us to be pushed out. You know, and
Absolutely.
the unfortunate part is that, I mean, I'm cool with diversity and adding new groups. The unfortunate part is the culture changes, because now that we move into the neighborhood, or some groups move into the neighborhood, we have to conform to their likings. Opposed to, we moved into the neighborhood. Oh, this is great. You guys have culture, but it's too loud. Why do you have block parties? Block parties now end at 4:00. Like, who? Listen, I live in Harlem.
Why are you playing drums in the park?
Yes, in the park. That's where we play drums at.
Yeah.
It's like it's unfortunate, you know, that culture is being taken away. Something that I grew up in, you know, especially Felecia, you participated. You know, that means my children don't get to see that anymore. My children
That's
see a
right.
different Harlem. They don't see the Harlem that I saw.
Right.
They don't get to
And in
experience.
some ways, that's not a bad thing,
No,
right?
yeah, no, yeah. No, I mean, we can talk about the bad things. I have tons of stories about those. We can do a whole podcast about the bad things.
Yeah,
But
but
the
yeah,
bad
but
things
to your
made
point,
Harlem
you're
great.
absolutely right.
Like, I miss the block parties. I miss block parties.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
miss them. I miss the fun. I miss playing tag. I miss seeing kids playing basketball, playing stickball.
That's
Do
right.
kids even know what a stickball is? Like,
Shelby.
oh my God, skillsies. I miss
Double
playing in the
dutch.
street. I don't even think kids know how to jump rope anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like, I miss those days, you know. But
yeah.
it comes with the changing of times, and, you know, how do we adapt, or how do we? I don't want to say adapt. I
Hmm.
think for me, that's become a bad word.
Yeah,
You have to
I
change who
agree.
you are. Like, why do I have to change who I am? Why do I have to change my culture to fit your needs? You moved into my culture. You adapt to us.
Yes, it's almost like turning, and this is, one of my favorite analogies. When we are seeing the culture shifts that we're seeing in Harlem, it's like turning a paella into a white rice. And so when you start to strip out the flavor, which is part of the reason why you moved here, that is when it is no longer the reason why you moved here. And it shouldn't just be about taking advantage of the real estate, but how do you integrate into the schools, right? How do you become a part of the community without trying to take the community over? But that's a power structure that we live in this country every day, right? And that's a lot of what we're seeing right now throughout the country in all 50 states where people are protesting. And so I know that this is all about prevention, but I think that some of what informs our use is quieting the noises that are disruptive to us emotionally. And the structure system in the society is uncomfortable emotionally for people of color, and it should be. And so how do we begin to talk about that in a constructive way that may help me choose that I want to be and I can be a part of the solution instead of quieting the noises with alcohol and with other substances, that I can be a part of the solution and not just try and make it go away by making time stopped. And that's why I used, right? I just wanted to make time stop. And so it is time for us to put our boots to the ground and be a part of the solution. And my friend always says to me, you can't fight high.
I love that.
And so we need our soldiers and our warriors more than ever right now, because there's a window of opportunity for us that I would love to see us take advantage of.
I don't think we could have come up with a better point. And I really appreciate that you're sharing this history. For me, as a white woman living on Long Island, I need to hear from you. I need to know what I can do as an ally. I need to do more than put up little memes and change my profile on Facebook. I need to be part of that battle, part of the support for every warrior out there. And this is all part of prevention, because we all need to hear this, so we need to understand our role in this. And if everybody is fighting for a better chance for everybody in this country, and I don't think of it as equality, I think of it as equity and justice. If we don't have those things going on, we are going to keep driving the behaviors that destroy people. So this is all part of it. You said it's about the solution. We are the solution. I think we've kind of come to the point where we're probably out of time, because I'm looking, we need to end by 12:15. But
this was way too short, Ronnie.
Well, maybe you can come on for an entire show next time. Co-host with us, seriously.
Felecia, we were talking about you, like, dude, I know Felecia can fill a whole episode and a half, then some. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. So we appreciate that you're our first guest. And
I thank you for allowing me to do that.
And you are invited again and again and again.
Come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm serious. And I make that as a serious offer, because these are the insights we want to share with people, because we're coming from 3 different perspectives, some shared, some different. I mean, if you think about it, we each of us has something in common with the other. And then we all have things that we don't have in common. So I think we need to get those perspectives out there. But I do want to say, I'm going to repeat the number of people need help. If you're feeling hopeless, if you're feeling you need help with your addiction, with wanting to hurt yourself, you can call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPENY, or text 467-369. Thank you for joining us today on The Solution. And hopefully everything we do, when I was growing up, I wanted to change the world, but I learned I can't change the world until I start changing my corner of it. So think about the change that you can make and how we can move forward, because nothing changes if we change nothing.